I'm curious, what was your first experience reading SF at school? For some of you, it might have been John Wyndham, The Day of the Triffids, or perhaps Chrysalids. For others, it may have been Flowers for Algernon, Daniel Keyes, 1966. Flowers for Algernon was originally a short story published in 1959. It won a Hugo Award. And then it was expanded into a novel in 1966, and again it won a Hugo Award for Best Novel, shared with Babel 17 by Samuel Delany. This novel is very well known, along with the media adaptations. For this video, there will be some spoilers. I'm going to read the blurb from the back cover. Charlie Gordon is about to embark upon an unprecedented journey. Born with an unusually low IQ, he has been chosen as the perfect subject for an experimental surgery that researchers hope will increase his intelligence, a procedure that has already been highly successful when tested on a lab mouse named Algernon. As the treatment takes effect, Charlie's intelligence expands until it surpasses that of the doctors who engineered his metamorphosis. The experiment appears to be a scientific breakthrough of paramount importance until Algernon suddenly deteriorates. Will the same happen to Charlie? As his intelligence increases, he starts to realize how he has been abused because of his low IQ. Not only has his intelligence been a butt of humor, but he has also been suppressed sexually. His mother feared his sexuality, especially with a younger sister and with other girls. With his greater intelligence, he also examines his shame towards sexuality. This book follows a very common plot journey. We see Charlie rise in intelligence and the experiences that come along with that, and then we see a decline. As the blurb at the back of the book says, Algernon is deteriorating. Will the same happen to Charlie? This book is comprised of journal entries by Charlie. Daniel Keyes uses the writing in part to portray that incline and decline in Charlie's intelligence. What is intelligence? What does emotion have to do with intelligence? What truly makes a good human being? Who really are our friends? Can people of different intelligence have a meaningful relationship? Do we fear a decline in our health and our intelligence? This is a question that many people as they age will face. Flowers for Algernon is a classic SF novel. It is nearly perfect in my eyes. I give it 10 out of 10. It's a must-read. Bewilderment by Richard Powers, 2021. This may be a book that I've had the fastest reread on. I read it in 2021 and I've reread it for this review. To truly appreciate this book, you must have read Flowers for Algernon. Flowers for Algernon becomes a plot point within this novel. From the back of the book, Theo Byrne is a promising young astrobiologist who has found a way to search for life on other planets dozens of light years away. He is also the widowed father of a most unusual 9-year-old. His son, Robin, is funny, loving, and filled with plans. He thinks and feels deeply, adores animals, and can spend hours painting elaborate pictures of them. He is also on the verge of being expelled from 3rd grade for smashing his friend's face with a thermos. What can a father do when the only solution offered to his rare, troubled boy is to put him on psychoactive drugs? What can he say when his son comes to him wanting an explanation for a world that is clearly in love with its own destruction? All he can do is to take the boy to other planets while fostering his desperate campaign to help save this one. When it talks about going to other planets, It's referring to the father's routine of taking a computer program and the son and the father exploring what other planets might be like, both in biology and in geology, looking specifically at the atmosphere, because that might be something eventually we can detect. So when the father gathers a catalog of these planets, this is something we might be able to use if we can detect the atmosphere of planets with our telescopes. But this really isn't a novel about that program. It's a novel about Robin. Similar to Charlie and Algernon, Robin is going to go into an experimental therapy. It's a therapy where he tries to match the brainwaves of someone else. This therapy of matching brainwaves helps alleviate Robin's Asperger and OCD tendencies. You can't help but fall in love with Robin. He has insights that are way beyond that of a normal 9-year-old boy. I'm going to read a passage from Bewilderment that talks about flowers for Algernon. Robin and his father are on a road trip. They are listening to the audiobook for Flowers for Algernon. Up through the diminishing hills of Kentucky, past the Creation Museum and Ark Encounter, through counties that had little use for science of any kind, we listened to Flowers for Algernon. I'd read it at the age of 11. That's the father. It was one of the first books in my 2,000-volume library of science fiction. I bought it in a used bookstore, a mass market paperback bearing a creepy image of a face halfway between mouse and man. Paying for it with my own money felt like cracking the code of adulthood. Holding it open in my hands, I wormholed into a different Earth. Small, light, portable parable universes turned out to be the only thing in this life that I've collected. Algernon lit up my proto-scientific imagination and made me want to experiment on something the size of my own life. I hadn't read the story in decades, and a 12-hour drive seemed the perfect excuse to revisit with Robin in tow. The story gripped him. He kept making me pause for questions. "He's changing, Dad. You hear his words getting bigger?" A little later, he asked, "Is this for real? I mean, could it ever be for real someday?" I told him everything could be for real, somewhere, someday. That may have been a mistake. By the time we reached southern Indiana's long stretch of factory farms, he was swept away, limiting his commentary to cheers and jeers. We went for miles at a shot, Robin leaning forward, a hand on the dash, forgetting even to look out the window. He was spawning synapses as fast as Charlie Gordon, whose IQ rose to precarious heights. Robbie winced through Charlie's rejection at the hand of his co-workers. The moral ambiguity of the experimenting scientists, Niemeyer and Strauss, hurt him so much that I had to remind him to breathe. When Algernon died, he made me stop the recording. Really? He couldn't wrap his head around the fact. The mouse is dead? His face flirted with quitting the story altogether. But Algernon had already ended much of the innocence Robin still possessed. Robin is about to embark on an experiment with full knowledge of what happened to Charlie and Algernon. The potential for gains, permanent gains, is too huge to ignore. Bewilderment is a beautifully written, emotional journey for a father and son. This novel is also very much about what we are doing to our Earth, and can we do something to stop it. I would say that this novel is more beautiful in its writing than Flowers for Algernon. But I think Flowers for Algernon maintains its 10 out of 10 for its historical importance. Maybe a decade or two down the line, I might think of this one the same way. My only reservation for this story is the grafting of the father's interest in science fiction and his career to the story of Robin. At times it works, and at other times I found myself skimming the passages about these planets. But don't let that stop you from reading this book. I will remember the amazing prose and powerful emotions of this story for a long time. I give Bewilderment 9 out of 10. What novels do you think of that follow sort of a bell curve of a plot line? Do you think Flowers for Algernon deserves a Hugo Award? Have you read Bewilderment? This may be one of the most current novels that I have reviewed, and I would strongly recommend it. I guess one other question might be, do you consider Flowers for Algernon or Bewilderment to actually be SF novels? Please join our conversation in the comments. Until next time, keep reading.